Spencer Strider's going to make a start for the Atlanta Braves next week. Bryce Elder's going to make a start for the Gwinnett Stripers. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Friday, May 16th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. I want to get to Chris Sale versus Garrett Crochet on Friday night. That's going to be an awesome pitching matchup. I want to get to the work that AJ Smith-Shawver and Drake Baldwin have been doing and how the Braves could have two different guys contending for Rookie of the Year. But first, we got the news after Thursday's win that Spencer Strider would be starting a game for the Atlanta Braves next week. He came out of a sim game feeling fine. They don't see a need for him to do a rehab start. So manager Brian Snitker told the media that Strider would start a game against Washington next week. The Braves are on the road Tuesday through Thursday to take on the Nationals in a rematch of a series from this week. It'll be 7 out of 10 games against the Washington Nationals. I just always found that weird. You'd play that team so close together. But Strider will start one of those 3 games. The likelihood of that is probably going to be game 1 on Tuesday. And there's a couple reasons why that's likely. Reason number 1 is that is the opening in the rotation because the Braves went ahead and optioned Bryce Elder to Gwinnett. I've got a lot of thoughts here about the choice to send Bryce Elder down because the average reaction from the average person who follows the Braves is going to say, get that bum Bryce Elder out of here. And I don't necessarily think that's the right way to look at this. Since, in the last 15 days, Bryce Elder's made 3 starts to a 3.18 ERA. It's not terrible. There are members of this rotation who have been worse than him in that stretch. Grant Holmes has 3 starts and a 3.57 ERA. Victor Schwellenbach has 3 starts and a 4.32 ERA. By contrast, Chris Sale made 2 starts with a 1.46. AJ Smith-Shawver made 3 starts with an 0.46 ERA. But here were Atlanta's options, right? The options they had were 6-man rotation, put somebody else in the bullpen, or send Elder or Smith-Shawver down. Or Schwellenbach, technically, but it was always going to be Elder. And manager Brian Snitker confirmed they did not want to do a 6-man rotation. Because they have off days, you would be into they have the next 3 Mondays off. Yes, you're in a stretch of 17 games in 17 days, but you've got 3 consecutive Mondays off. So if you had 6 starters with an off day every day for the next 3 weeks, you would be throwing those guys once every 7 days. Which, one, reminds me a lot of the schedules over in NPB, like Japan, Korea, things like that, where they throw once a week. Also reminds me of a college schedule, where they throw once a week. But to do a 6-man, one, going from normal rest to that additional rest, and then going back to a somewhat normal schedule a little bit later. In June, you have 3 off days in the first 16 days of the month. But then after that, you play 13 games, you have 1 game off, and then you play 12 games in 13 days. The days of rest for everybody would be really weird. You'd go from normal rest to, in essence, pitching once a week, to having to then shorten them back a little bit. And it's just a lot of moving back and forth. Brian Snitker said the Braves didn't want to do that. Okay, fine. So your options are move somebody to the bullpen or send somebody to AAA. And if you were going to move somebody to the bullpen, my thought was Grant Holmes. The reason for that, it's not because Grant Holmes has pitched worse than Elder or anything like that. Again, the last 3 starts, 3.18 ERA for Elder, 3.57 for Holmes. Not really that much different. I haven't dug into the advanced numbers, but I'd imagine they're probably pretty close in those too. But for me, putting Grant Holmes in the bullpen, what that would have done would have given you the ability to manage his workload. I went back and looked at a bunch of reliever to starter conversions from last season. And 130 to 140 innings is really the effective max that you can get out of those guys. Jordan Hicks with the Giants threw 109 2/3. Jose Soriano with the Angels threw 113. Ronaldo Lopez threw 135 2/3. He had 2 different injured list stints and came back and did a little bit of relief work. And then Garrett Crochet, then of the White Sox, threw 146 innings. And that was with them severely limiting his innings down the stretch, shorter outings and things like that. He was the only one of those 4 who made it through the entire season. So it feels like 130 to 145 innings is the max you're going to get from a reliever who's converting to the rotation. Now, Grant Holmes is a little bit different, right? Because he did start some games last year. He had 7 starts last year. He ended up throwing 68 1/3 innings. Should have gotten 2 more outs, honestly. The closest analog I could find to that was a guy like Zach Littell, right? 2023 for Tampa Bay. He moved into the rotation, made 14 starts, finished with 87 innings. And then last season, as a starter, and solely a starter, had about 150. And so Grant Holmes, 68 1/3 last year, finishing between 130 and 150 makes sense. He's already at 45 innings, more than 45 innings through 8 starts and 1 relief appearance. So I could see an argument for putting Grant Holmes in the bullpen and trying to limit his innings a little bit there. You do have some problems with that, however. Problem number 1 is unless you have an injury, or an injury in air quotes, right? Somebody's shoulder gets sore, you probably have to DFA somebody, right? You weren't going to option down Isabel Hernandez. You're not going to option down Dylan Lee. Nobody else has flexibility in the pen. So likely you would have lost Rafael Montero. We can debate whether or not that's actually a loss. He has one of the highest walk rates of any reliever in baseball. I don't necessarily think it would have been that big of a loss, but you would have lost somebody, and we know how Alex Anthopoulos is pretty averse to doing that. The second downside, and it's harder to quantify here, is asking Holmes to either go to the pen for a couple weeks and only pitch in long relief, pitching 3 or 4 innings at a time, or asking him to join that back end mix and pitch 1 inning here and 1 inning there, and then trying to stretch him back into a starter if either somebody gets hurt or you just need another starter when you do have one of those stretches of 20 games in 21 days. How hard would it be for him to go to a single inning kind of stint multiple times a week and then ramp back up into a starting role? So instead, they optioned Bryce Elder down. He's done this before. I think that's the big thing. I believe he was the opening day starter for Gwinnett this year. But Bryce Elder's been up and back before. And for me, AJ Smith-Shawver's been so dominant since they recalled him. Again, an 0.46 ERA in his last 3. And he's a 22-year-old youngster who is still trying to get acclimated and established in the majors. We want him to have every opportunity to stay in one place and keep pitching. Bryce Elder's made an all-star game. He's gone back and forth. He can do it a little bit longer, right? Now, what that means is if Strider's not pitching until Tuesday, you have the ability, you have the runway to grab a reliever for a couple days, for the weekend, really. And looking at it, you've got a couple options here. I think option 1, my preferred option, is a guy like Dylan Dodd, okay? A lefty, but I do want to point out, after the first relief appearance of the year where he gave up a ton of runs, ever since then, he's been pretty good. He allowed 5 runs over 15 innings. He's allowed 1 run in the entire month of May, and he hasn't pitched since Sunday. So he hasn't pitched all week. The likelihood is he could go multiple times over the weekend, and then you can send him back to AAA on Monday to bring back Strider for Tuesday's start. So that's that's the easiest way to do this. And the reason for that is everybody else who you would use who is on the 40-man roster in Gwinnett has already pitched, right? Nathan Weil started on Thursday. Davis Daniel pitched on Tuesday. You probably couldn't get more than one inning out of him until maybe Saturday. Hurston Waldrop threw on Wednesday. Austin Cox was in relief of Waldrop on Wednesday. He struggled there. So there wasn't really another 40-man option that you have used in the majors before. Like, you could bring up somebody like Domingo Gonzalez, but you're making his major league debut if you do that. You do have the option, you have a 40-man spot open. And so you do have the option of either Jesse Chavez, who you could just DFA on Monday and he'll probably re-sign like he's done every time so far, or you could bring back Craig Kimbrell. Kimbrell's been pitching the ninth inning a lot for the Braves. His fastball hit 95, like he's back to throwing 95 again, whereas he was in the lower 90s a lot last year. So you could bring back Kimbrell for the weekend if you want. The issue there is Chavez can just be DFA'd and re-sign. Dodd can be optioned back to AAA. If Kimbrell comes up, you're either he's so bad you're DFAing him like you did Hector Neris, or he's staying, which would mean you would still need to make a decision on Monday. Do you DFA Rafael Montero then? What do you do? So by the time that this pod comes out, I imagine the Braves will have already announced that move. My prediction, Dylan Dodd or Craig Kimbrell with an outside shot that maybe it's Jesse Chavez. We'll see what happens. I'm going on the record. Again, by the time this pod comes out, I'm sure they'll have already announced who this move is. And so I could look dumb right here when it's somebody who we didn't even realize was going to be an option. In just a minute, let's talk about that finale on Thursday, right? Specifically, what AJ Smith-Shawver did and what Drake Baldwin did. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chinook Seedery. You guys have heard me talk about this all the time ad nauseum at this point. I am the hugest fan of just these sunflower seeds. I give them away to people all the time. I take them to my kids' youth sporting events. We had some folks here putting a new roof on the house. I made sure all the guys, we had bottles of water out for them. We had popsicles because it's hot, right? Those little cheap, like clear, like colorful liquid popsicles you throw in the freezer, right? You buy like 30 of them for $1. But I also had packs of sunflower seeds, and they just tore them up. They loved them. There's 8 flavors here. Original, lemon pepper, jalapeno ranch, Parmesan and pepper, cinnamon toast, dill pickle, hatch chili, and smokehouse barbecue. At ChinookSeedery.com, ChinoOok, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES, it gets you a couple things. Thing number 1, 10% off your order. If you buy the sampler pack, they always ship that for free, but you get 10% off. It's all 8 flavors, 2-ounce packages. Once you know what you like, you can buy a variety pack of all 8, or you can build your own case. Either way, you get 10% off with promo code BRAVES and free shipping on orders over $40. If you want it too, they've got cool merch. I wear the Chinook Seedery hat a ton. I don't know why I didn't think to put it on for the ad read, but again, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. You get 10% off, free shipping on orders over $40, and it's a great way to support the Braves Today podcast. I want to talk about Thursday's win, 5-2 over the Washington Nationals by the Atlanta Braves. You won the series 3-1, but the two big stories here, AJ Smith-Shawver and Drake Baldwin. Okay, AJ Smith-Shawver, when I did the write-up over on BravesToday.com, for every game that's called Today's 3 Things, right? We're talking about the player of the game, the turning point of the game, and what you'll be talking about tomorrow. That's the structure of that. It comes out after every game. It is free. Go check it out, BravesToday.com. But I gave AJ Smith-Shawver the player of the game, okay? He goes 6 innings, 1 run. It was unearned. Shout out Austin Riley for his 4th defensive error in the last 2 weeks. He walked 1, 2 hits, 6 strikeouts. And we've seen a little bit of adjustment in what AJ Smith-Shawver's been doing on the mound recently, right? He's not throwing the cutter hardly at all. Didn't throw any today, didn't throw any last time. On May 5th, he threw it once. So he's really become a three-pitch pitcher. It's the fastball, it's the splitter, and it's the curveball. On the season, he doesn't have great results on the curveball. It's a negative run value. The splitter is 99th percentile for all off-speed pitches in baseball. It's one of the most valuable pitches in all of baseball. And the big change for the splitter has been the fact that he can not only land the fastball more effectively for strikes, but he can do it with really good velocity. It's typical for guys to struggle to throw close to max effort with their fastball and know where it's going. And we've seen that a little bit with Hurston Waldrop and his delivery. I talked about those mechanics changing last week. Yesterday, on Thursday, AJ Smith-Shawver averaged 96.8 miles an hour on the fastball. Touched 98.9, never threw one below 94. It was almost 2 full mile an hour above his season average. But even with the extra velo, he still was able to keep it in the zone 64% of the time, which is more than adequate for a fastball. The story, the game plan against AJ Smith-Shawver has always been make him throw strikes. Just make him throw strikes. Don't worry about the fastball. It's probably not going to be in the zone. And either he's going to walk you or he's going to have to start landing the cutter, the curveball, the splitter in the zone for strikes. And those, if they're in the zone versus the splitter being a chase pitch below the zone, those are easier pitches to hit. Part of me thinks part of the reason that why the cutter became such a prominent part of the arsenal for a while is because he was having to use it to get strikes to get back into counts. Now that he's throwing the fastball so much for a strike, he doesn't have to use the cutter nearly as much. So 17 whiffs in the game, 35% called strikes plus whiffs. The CSW, again, you're looking for right around 30%. That's roughly league average for a starter. So 35% is doing well. And honestly, just very impressed with what he did. Like I said earlier, now his ERA in the last couple starts, his last 3 starts, 0.46 ERA. Just absurd. His overall ERA this season in his 7 starts is 2.33. Okay? That is, if you look at all pitchers in the National League who have 38 2/3 innings or more, that is 5th best in the National League. And he is 22 years old. There is absolutely more space that this kid can go. And I was really impressed when he was talking after the start on Thursday. He talked about when he went down to Gwinnett, James McCann, who is still there, the veteran catcher, really helped him and helped him understand the ability, how deep he can go if he can end at-bats early by throwing strikes. Getting ahead of hitters, throwing strikes early in the count, throwing things in the zone, and making them get early hits. I thought about the change in him the second inning. Bases loaded, 1 out. And it feels like the old AJ Smith-Shawver would have given up a 3 spot in that inning before he got out of it. This AJ Smith-Shawver, inning double play, over, nobody scores, just cruising. That's AJ Smith-Shawver has been legitimately one of the better starters in the National League, and he's 22 years old. But just as good as he's been, Drake Baldwin has also been as good. Drake Baldwin goes 3 for 4 in this game as an RBI single. His batting average is a .360. Now, the caveat here, he only has 75 at-bats on the year in 27 games, as compared to your Austin Riley with 182 and your Matt Olson your Ozzie Albies with 175 and things like that, because he's a catcher, play every day already, and he's been sharing time heavily with Sean Murphy up until just recently, where he started 3 of the last 5 games. But .360 average is the best on the team. OPS of 980 is the best on the team. There's a reason not only that they kept him up when Murphy came back, but there's a reason why they've given him 3 the last 5 starts. He is a special offensive talent. The defense has gotten better, right? And when you look at all major league rookies, so all players who are rookie eligible, who are going to be in the running for the respective Rookie of the Year awards, that have at least 30 plate appearances, some sort of sample, right? He leads in average, he leads in OPS, he leads in on base, he leads in slugging, and he has one of the lower strikeout percentages. He struck out 13 times in 75 at-bats. My math is not fantastic off the top of my head. I believe that's around 16%. So this is, Drake Baldwin is legitimately playing like a Rookie of the Year. He's the first Braves catcher. This is a great stat from David O'Brien of The Athletic. He's the first Braves catcher with consecutive 3-hit games as a starter since William Contreras in 2021. Which everybody's been mad about William Contreras leaving and all of that. He won the Silver Slugger the last 2 years as catcher of the National League. He's batting .238 right now. And prior to Thursday's game, Baldwin and Murphy were batting a combined .273 and are second in WAR at the catching position in all of baseball behind Seattle, which is almost entirely driven by Cal Raleigh, big dumper. Almost entirely driven by him. Outside of him, the Braves catchers are some of the best in baseball. He also was a pinch hitter on Wednesday, so he had a single there. He went 7 for 9 in the series. In his last 14 starts, he has a hit in 13 of them, and he's batting .458 in that stretch. Legitimately, Drake Baldwin has been a Rookie of the Year contender. And unlike AJ Smith-Shawver, Drake Baldwin was in enough top 100 lists where if he wins Rookie of the Year, the Braves would qualify for the prospect promotion incentive draft pick, which would be after the first round. Now, it's hard for a catcher to win Rookie of the Year, especially when there's another quality catcher in Sean Murphy in there. It's a playing time thing, right? But Drake Baldwin is performing well enough from a numbers perspective to win it. The question's just going to be, will he have gaudy enough counting stats when voters look at the position players who have played every day to still be in there, because he's going to be beating them all in batting average and on base and slugging and all that. He just might not be there in counting stats. But this has been it feels like every year, for having such a maligned farm system, every year the Braves are able to find some sort of impact player out of the farm system, right? They had in 2022, they had Michael Harris and Spencer Strider. You look at Spencer Schwellenbach last year. This year, both AJ Smith-Shawver, who we've seen before, I know, but he's breaking out and making himself an everyday player, and Drake Baldwin. And it makes me really excited to see, next year, if Marcell Ozuna does not come back, which we'll have that debate later in the year. I think there's a lot of leadership you lose if you don't bring back Marcell Ozuna. But you have the ability to play both Baldwin and Murphy almost every single day between catching and designated hitter. And then the rotation, what the rotation could look like next year with Chris Sale on a club option, AJ Smith-Shawver, Spencer Schwellenbach, Spencer Strider, Ronaldo Lopez. Again, Bryce Elder's look good. You'll have some prospects. Hurston Waldrop may be ready after his mechanical changes. You'll have a lot of options to start. And so both your lineup and your rotation could be a little bit different next year than they are this year. The future's maybe brighter than I think a lot of people realize. In just a second, let's talk about Chris Sale versus Garrett Crochet, because it's a really cool matchup, and there's a lot to like about this. We'll break it down, including what to expect on the mound from Garrett Crochet next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's break down. We're not going to break down the entire series and all of the starters. We do know the starters, right? This will be Friday, Chris Sale versus Garrett Crochet. I've said it a couple times now. Saturday, Grant Holmes versus Lucas Giolito. Heads up, that game is on Fox. That game is not on the standard broadcast options. And then Sunday's day game, Spencer Schwellenbach versus Brian Bello. So a splitter guy versus a changeup guy, if I remember Bello. But let's talk about Sale versus Crochet. Because you have that whole thing of former White Sox starters, very good White Sox starters, who get traded to the Red Sox. Obviously, Sale started for a lot longer before he got traded. And then he was in Boston a lot longer before he got traded to Atlanta. Crochet did the speed run on the start, and he was a starter for 1 year in Chicago before he got traded. So maybe he'll get traded sooner rather than later to Atlanta. But Crochet this year has been very good. 4-2 across 9 starts with a 1.93 ERA. His pitching run value on StatCast is 99th percentile at plus 14. His fastball, really 2 fastballs, 3 fastballs, 4-seam cutter and sinker. People who listen to this show know I love throwing multiple fastballs. I love multiple sliders. I love your bullet sliders being 95 or harder, 85 or harder. I got a couple of things that I'm all about, and those are Garrett Crochet ticks a lot of these boxes, right? The breaking balls, mostly a sweeper here, 87th percentile. The changeup, 89th percentile. Like, Garrett Crochet is one of the best starters in baseball this year, just bar none. We've seen the Braves in those situations sometimes struggle. I'm thinking Yoshinobu Yamamoto with LA. Sometimes we've seen them come out and bash those guys around. Michael King and Dylan Cease, right? So there is different levels to this, and we'll see what the Braves do against Crochet. Now, they have faced him before. One of his first starts, like as a starter last year with the White Sox, April 2nd against Atlanta in Chicago. You'll remember it was a night game. It was like 44 degrees and windy, and it was either the game before or the game after. I think it was the game after this was the day game where Strider was like playing toss in the outfield as it was like snowing. And then they banged the game. Strider got pushed to the home opener, and he got hurt in the home opener and missed the rest of the year. In that game, 7 innings by Garrett Crochet, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk to 8 strikeouts. The 1 run and one of the 3 hits was a Marcell Ozuna home run in the 7th inning. White Sox did win that game 3-2. So what to expect from Garrett Crochet? Again, 5-pitch pitcher, 4-seam cutter, sinker, sweeper, changeup. So he's not throwing a conventional slider. It's very much an east to west kind of thing, right? He's the movement plot. Not a lot of stuff drops that much until he takes some off the sweeper and gets 2-plane break on it. A lot of it is east to west, right? If you are a righty, it is 4-seamer first, cutter second, sinker third, sweeper fourth. Changeup fourth, sweeper fifth, which is odd to me because the whole thing on the sweepers are supposed to have very good platoon splits for opposite-handedness and very bad platoon splits for same-handedness. So you would think he would throw the sweeper more to righties than it being literally his 5th pitch to them. Little bit odd to me there, but whatever. Against lefties, it's virtually equal 4-seamer sinker, then the cutter, then the sweeper. He has not thrown a single changeup to a lefty, which if you think about it, that makes sense because the changeup is going to run in towards a lefty. Typically, if you're using a pitch, it's going to move laterally. Something like that moves in towards the batter is inherently going to be harder to either not hit them with if you're trying to come inside or not leave over the middle of the plate if you're trying to like catch the outside corner. If it backs up too far, it's over the heart of the plate. So it's standard for a lefty to not throw a lot of changeups to other lefties. That's common. But the sweeper just feels like it's an underused piece, and I'm curious to see if at some point in time, if this weekend is the weekend where they start having him throw it more to righties. The Boston Red Sox don't typically have guys throw a lot of fastballs unless your fastball is really good. Obviously, Garrett Crochet's fastball is really good. He has the pitch usage of that has spiked recently, whereas everything else, he's been cutting back on the sinker a little bit in favor of the four-seamer, looking at the game-by-game pitch usage in StatCast. Again, I really think if he's not going to throw the sweeper a lot, that does help Atlanta quite a bit, simply because, okay, he's thrown 65 sweepers. He's allowed 7 of them to be put into play. Just 7 of the 65 pitches. 1 hit, and it's a single. He struck out 17 on the sweeper with 1 hit, a single. Some point in time, somebody in Boston's very good pitching department is going to say, hey, you guys should throw the sweeper a lot more. And I really hope it's not Friday night against the Braves. But it's going to be a fantastic matchup. I cannot wait to watch this. And then, as we do always, we'll be going live over on Locked On Sports Atlanta, doing the postcast, breaking down the game as soon as it's over. And as far as this show, we'll be back on Monday with more episodes, unless something massive happens over the weekend. Maybe they activate Ronald for Sunday. We'll definitely probably be going live when they bring Ronald back, simply because it's such big news. Do me a favor, if you're listening on audio, Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, leave a 5-star review. I don't think Spotify lets you leave comments, but Apple does. Words of affirmation are always great, guys. Listen, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. Also, bravestoday.com, free or paid memberships, goes a long way towards helping out the show. We're doing a lot of cool things over there. We have a private chat for the paid subscribers where we're talking about different merch options for both the podcast and the newsletter. We're planning a meetup at a Braves game where Braves Today is going to try to get group rates on tickets for us all to sit together, watch a ball game together, enjoy ourselves, and have a good time. So again, bravestoday.com is where a lot of the information is for that in the discussion thread there for the paid subscribers. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.